Some call him the White Wolf. Others whisper the name Butcher of Blaviken. To the elves, he is Gwynblyde, the pale predator who walks between worlds. But behind the nicknames and the legends lies a riddle that fans have debated for decades. Just how old is Geralt of Rivia? His hair turned white, not from age, but from mutation. His face carries scars, yet he moves with the strength and reflexes of a man half his apparent years. Today we turn back the dusty pages of the Witcher's Chronicle and seek to uncover the truth of Geralt's beginnings, his strange survival, and the years he carries with him. And as we follow his path, you may find that age is not measured in years at all, but in burdens and in battles. Geralt's story begins in shadow, wrapped in uncertainty. His mother, a sorceress named Vicenna, is said to have left him on the steps of Kaer Morhen. His father, Corin, is even more obscure, barely mentioned, almost a ghost in the chronicles. Some scholars argue that Geralt's unusual tolerance to mutation comes from this mysterious parentage. Others suggest that Vicenna's own magical blood gave him a resilience no ordinary child could have possessed. What we do know is this: Geralt was not raised by his parents, but by the Witchers of Kaer Morhen. His childhood was carved not with lullabies or stories by the hearth, but with sword drills, herbal brews, and lessons in survival. Even then, the boy was marked. His golden eyes, striking, unsettling, set him apart from other children. Villagers whispered of curses. The Witchers whispered of potential. And in Kaer Morhen, potential meant one thing: the Trial of the Grasses. A ritual that would either make him or kill him. The Trial of the Grasses was no ordinary test. It was torment distilled into alchemy. Young boys were given a series of mutagenic potions, concoctions so deadly that 6 out of 10 would perish in agony. Fever would burn away their humanity, reshaping bone and sinew, stretching the limits of the human form. Geralt not only survived, he endured more than any other Witcher before him. The alchemists at Kaer Morhen, astonished by his resilience, subjected him to additional experiments. Where others would have died, Geralt endured. His hair, once ordinary, turned a ghostly white. His senses sharpened beyond natural limits. His body became a weapon tempered in suffering. And so the White Wolf was born, not through years, but through fire, pain, and mutation. But here lies the paradox. From this moment forward, Geralt's aging slowed. His body no longer followed the same calendar as men, which means to ask, how old is Geralt, is to step into a puzzle with no single answer. Once the trials were behind him, Geralt left the fortress of Kaer Morhen and set foot on the path, that endless road where Witchers earn their coin by slaying monsters. In those early years, Geralt was not yet the legend. He was a wandering swordsman, quiet, calculating, still testing the boundaries of his new body. He hunted drowners in the swamps, ghouls on battlefields, and the restless dead that haunted forgotten villages. For each contract, there was payment, but also suspicion. Because though peasants needed Witchers, they did not trust them. Mothers pulled their children away from the pale-eyed hunter. Priests called him unnatural. And so Geralt learned quickly that monsters were not always the ones with fangs. It was in these days that he earned his most infamous name, the Butcher of Blaviken, a bloody misunderstanding in a small town where, to prevent a massacre, Geralt cut down a band of cutthroats. The villagers saw only the corpses, not the lives he had saved. Still, Geralt's path was not only steel and blood. Along the way, he took contracts that revealed the frailty of men. A Striga, once a cursed princess, who taught him that some monsters are victims first. A werewolf, whose tragedy was love rather than hunger. And a nest of kikimoras, which showed him that even the most alien of beasts fought only to protect their brood. Each of these lessons carved something deeper than scars. They carved perspective. And perspective matters, because it changes how one measures age. Geralt's years on the path were few by the calendar, but each contract, each moral dilemma, added a weight of experience that no human lifetime could hold. But the real paradox of his age would not be clear until much later, when scholars and fans alike began to ask, if Geralt appears 40, how many decades truly lie behind those golden eyes? Here, at last, we reach the question that echoes through taverns and fan forums alike. Just how many years has Geralt walked this world? The chronicles give us hints, but no exact number. In Sapkowski's tales, the timeline is fluid, deliberately so. Geralt is described as a man in his mid-30s when Ciri first enters his life, yet the sheer scope of his past suggests decades more. If we follow the novels, Geralt's early adventures already place him at least in his 50s. His body, however, does not betray it. Thanks to mutation, his aging slowed to a crawl. He bears the face of a seasoned warrior, perhaps 40 by human reckoning, but his bones, his blood, his memory hold nearly a century of time. The games push the riddle further. In The Witcher 3, set long after the books, Geralt still appears no older than he did in his so-called youth. By most scholarly estimates, during those events he would be between 90 and 100 years old. And yet, when asked, even Geralt himself seems uncertain. He shrugs off questions of age with a wry smile, as though numbers were beneath him. For a man who has outlived kings, watched empires rise and fall, what meaning could a number possibly hold? But the puzzle grows deeper when we look not at his years, but at the lives entwined with his own. For it is in his bonds, with sorceresses, with comrades, and with a child of destiny, that Geralt's true measure of time reveals itself. Numbers may tell us one truth about Geralt's years, but the world around him tells another. As he wandered the kingdoms of the north, Geralt became more than a solitary hunter. He was forced to walk the line between rulers and peasants, between courts of intrigue and muddy village squares. To kings he was a mercenary, a convenient sword against monsters, but always held at arm's length, never fully trusted. They called upon him when convenient, yet whispered that his kind should vanish. To common folk, he was both savior and outcast. They needed him to slay drowners, night wraiths, and beasts that plagued their fields. Yet once the work was done, they turned their backs, muttering prayers against the mutant who walked among them. This strange duality shaped Geralt more than any potion. He learned caution, patience, and above all, detachment. Yet, he never hardened into cruelty. Beneath the cynicism, he carried a quiet compassion, saving not just those who paid, but sometimes those who could not. And it was in this tension, between mistrust and reluctant gratitude that Geralt's humanity endured. A humanity that would be tested more deeply when fate bound him to Yennefer and to a child of destiny named Ciri. If Geralt's years can be measured in battles, then his true age can only be measured in the people who shaped him. Among them stands Yennefer of Vengerberg, the sorceress whose will was as fierce as Geralt's blade. Their love was never gentle, never simple. It was a storm that burned, broke, and mended again. For every year Geralt lived alone at the path, another was etched deeper through the moments they shared. His immortality, in a way, was softened by her humanity. And then, destiny delivered the greatest paradox of all, a child he was never meant to have. Cirilla Fiona Ellen Rhiannon. Ciri. By law of surprise, she became his ward, his student, and more than that, his daughter in all but blood. In raising her, Geralt carried burdens no mutation could prepare him for. He was forced to become not just a hunter of monsters, but a protector, a teacher, and at times, a father. These roles aged him in ways no calendar ever could. Scholars sometimes argue that Geralt's apparent age, his mid-40s look, comes not from biology alone, but from the weight of these relationships. His scars are not just from claws and steel, but from choices, who to save, who to let go, and the endless price of survival. Even Andrzej Sapkowski himself, the creator of the saga, once suggested that Geralt's age is irrelevant. What matters is not the number, but the myth. Yet fans cannot help but wonder if he can love, if he can grieve, and if he can outlive even those closest to him. Then what does it mean for a man like Geralt to grow old? And that question leads us to the final chapter. The myths, the songs, and the rumors that transformed Geralt from a witcher into a legend whispered by bards. In the villages of the north, Geralt is more than flesh and blood. He is a tale told at the fireside. To peasants, he is the pale rider who slays beasts for coin. To kings, he is a dangerous tool, sometimes necessary, always mistrusted. To poets like Dandelion, he is the perfect hero, flawed, conflicted, but unforgettable. And so the myth of the White Wolf was born. Some say he is immortal, cursed to wander until the end of days. Others whisper that his eyes can see fate itself, or that his sword carries a will of its own. These are not truths, but they are the kind of lies that stick because they speak to something deeper, the sense that Geralt belongs more to legend than to history. The irony is this: while we debate the number of his years, the people of his world do not count them at all. They measure him by deeds, by scars, by the songs of bards who paint him larger than life. And perhaps that is the truest answer to our riddle. Geralt of Rivia is as old as the stories say he is. So how old is Geralt of Rivia? By the measure of men, nearly a century. By the look of his face, perhaps 40. By the weight of his choices and the lives entwined with his own, far older than either number can tell. In the end, age for Geralt is not counted in winters past, but in the burdens carried, the loves lost, and the legends left behind. And that is why, long after the White Wolf is gone, his tale will still wander the paths of men. For some stories never grow old. If you enjoyed this journey through the chronicles of The Witcher, consider subscribing to Midnight Lorekeeper. so you never miss the next tale from the shadows of fantasy.